So when I went to bed last night, this bale of alfalfa was full and complete and still had the bottom string attached to it. I wonder who and what the culprits were. Oh, there's a clue. And there's another clue. And there's another clue. And just over next to it, there's another clue. And another clue. That's interesting. But that's not a clue. It's just interesting. Here's some really good clues. Usually within 2 days of cutting this is where the leach line, filters all the water and stuff. It stays green year round, as I mentioned this before. But usually within 2 days of cutting this, I get the activity. Give you a different angle. Like I said, usually within 2 days. You can see how close they can come up to the house, but it's the smell of that fresh grass. So on to business at hand. That is, before I take a drink of coffee. I was going through my YouTube channel comment section. Usually you can tell when and where the new comments are posted because you have that little bell icon and it'll tell you how many recent comments that you've gotten on your YouTube channel. And sometimes these comments will be fresh, but they may have been posted on a video that you've done several years ago. So this was posted underneath a video that I'd done some time back, but I want to share it with everybody just simply because of the greater context and everything related to homemade black powder. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some more thoughts from Brett Gibbons' book, like Fire and Powder. Okay, but this is the comment. How much attention did you pay to purifying potassium nitrate? A lot of people say that it's dirty, but I don't see it because I buy the potassium nitrate on the internet. How much attention should I put into burying potassium? That's a good question. Okay. I also buy my potassium nitrate on the internet from the source Outlaw X. Now, they advertise this as being 100% pure. But if you put it in a glass jar and roll it around, you might see like little black specks. That is stuff that may fall into the packaging process. Okay, those little tiny specks is not going to affect how many feet per second you're going to lose in your powder charge. It just doesn't. But the question that I have is, the same people that are telling you to purify this are probably the same people telling you, well, you don't need to purify the sulfur because it's already purified. Well, that same packaging sells the sulfur at 100% pure. So why is it that when it comes to the potassium nitrate, even though it's packaged at 100% pure, you still feel you have to purify it? That doesn't make sense to me whatsoever, just simply because of this. Brett writes in his book on page 103. So, for all the work to make black powder with pure ingredients, the best charcoal, careful and deliberate mixture, and incorporation of pressing it to just the right densities, we still only get 43% of what we actually want out of it. A hot, expansive gas builds up rapidly at high pressure to drive the bullet down the barrel. As another kick in the teeth, the roughly 57% of solid byproducts. In other words, following. So, in my opinion, and through my experimentations with it, it's not worth the time and effort, okay? Now, sometime back, there was another YouTuber out there that basically got in front of his camera and said, don't use Spectricide. It's no good. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Very adamant in getting that point across. So what I did is I bought a bottle of Spectricide and I did a video purifying it, okay? And my results were recorded. The difference in feet per second from the purified stuff that I did and the factory stuff was only 27 feet a second difference. That's all it was. Okay? That's all it was. So let me ask the question. I've asked this 100 times before on this channel. What makes you more dead? A bullet striking anything or you at 1,700 feet a second, or a bullet striking you at 1,727 feet a second? There's no difference in it, okay? But you have YouTubers out there, and even some in the comment section, that just are dogmatic about how they approach things. And I get it. Really, I get it. But for the extra 27 feet a second, it's not worth it, because you can easily add another 5 or 10 grains to your powder charge and achieve that. So for me, and I'm sure by the time somebody watches this, they're going to say, yeah, for 27 feet a second, it's not worth the time and effort to do it. Now, I did it just to disprove the thought process in the concept of somebody saying, don't do it. Just don't do it. But either way, you're only getting about 43% of what you want out of homemade black powder. It's dirty, okay? In my opinion, and with everything that I've experimented with, I have come to my own conclusion that it's not pure KNO3, it's not pure sulfur that makes a determining factor in your homemade black powder. Brett, in his book on page 36, has a short list of charcoal sources ranging from weeping willow all the way up to alder buckthorn, which is classified as dogwood, which is also classified as a hardwood, okay? And within this short list of charcoal sources, up here he has portion of gas in cubic inches. Okay, so looking at the amount of gas per cubic inch that weeping willow can produce, it's only between 54 to 56. So weeping willow doesn't produce a lot of gas, and if it's not producing a lot of gas, then it's going to be producing more fouling than anything else, okay? Going up the list to alder, which I've got some alder, it's common alder, white or red, but it's not the dogwood buckthorn alder, okay? But the alder that I have right now produces between 74 and 73 cubic inches of gas, okay? And he doesn't explain how these numbers are achieved, how the testing method is done to assess or get how many cubic inches of gas is produced in a burn. The only way that I could tell of what I'm producing is looking through, the chronograph, shooting through the chronograph and looking what the overall end results are. Okay, but the alder produces between 74 and 73 cubic inches of gas. So that should tell everybody, if you're producing more gas, you're producing less fouling. Okay? When it comes to alder buckthorn, it produces between 80 and 84 cubic inches of gas. Once again, it burns a little cleaner, and it's a lot more powerful because you're producing more hot gas. Okay? Now, through my experimentation on all of this, I have determined for myself that you get better black powder if you use the heartwood only. Okay, go back on this channel and I did a video comparing cedar pet bedding, which is full of the white creamy heartwood, and I made some gunpowder with that, and then I made some gunpowder with some eastern red cedar that I had here, and I cleaned out all the heartwood, so I just all the sapwood, so I got right down to the heartwood, and I got better performance out of it. The same thing with my mesquite. I made the first batch with a little bit of heartwood in it, and I made another batch getting rid of all of the sapwood and using the heartwood only, and it increased dramatically. See, what you really have to recognize when it comes to homemade black powder is that the fuel source, the charcoal, is the determining factor, because once again it was only a 27-foot difference. So is this really a determining factor as to how powerful your gunpowder is? Or is reading a chart that shows weeping willow producing between 59 and 66 as opposed to 80 to 84 cubic inches of gas? I think you can determine that for yourself. Okay? But if you haven't gotten this book, I would recommend you get it, because it's full of information, full disclosure. I've gone through this book 5 times now, because every time I go through it, I manage to pull a little bit more out of it. Sometimes, you know, you read this stuff when you're a little tired and it doesn't click. Sometimes you read it and it's like, yeah, I didn't catch that the first time around. For instance, this is one of the reasons why my formula is 76, 15, 11. Okay, and I'm going to share this once again. When I get a new bag of KNO3, I draw out 76 grams and I put it on the dashboard of my truck. Now, what led me to do this is prior to, I took out 75 grams, put it on the dashboard of my truck, and measured what the weight loss was. And it was as much as 6 grams. 6 grams of oxygen you're not using to help burn the fuel source. That's why I went to 76 grams, measured and weighed what that loss was. And on average, it's only about 4 to 5 grams. So my formula is probably 75.5, 75.6 grams, but that 0.5 and 0.6 is adding just that little bit more oxygen to the burn. Okay? And then I add an extra gram of sulfur, because sulfur is the ignition source and it burns hot, and it helps complete that cycle of burning black powder. But I want to read what Brett writes right here on page 50. It is generally accepted that sulfur's unique bonding characteristics help hold the I've done this before, the 3 components together, ingredients together, although the once popular theory that sulfur bonds with the nitrate to fill the pores of the charcoal has largely been disproven. So even Brett's acknowledging that sometimes these popular theories can be easily debunked, such as don't use spectricide for 27 more feet a second. Use it, because it's not worth your time and energy. Now make sure if you do this, you buy the spectricide in the black bottle, because I cannot attest to what's in that white bottle. They've repackaged it, and since I buy my stuff online, I don't have any desire to buy the white bottle of spectricide. So just be cautious with that. Okay, just be cautious. Okay, the once popular theory that sulfur bonds with the nitrate to fill the pores of the charcoal has largely been disproven. Another important role of sulfur is in raising the heat of the gases generated when gunpowder burns. Gases take up greater volume when at higher temperatures And this directly equates to stronger gunpowder and higher velocities. Like most men, if 10 grams works, 11 grams got to work better. And I've shown that for myself. That's why I've taken the time to write everything down carefully, because I can see these results for myself. Okay? All right, so I want to move on to another subject. Comment was made, I've heard through the grapevine, that burning black powder on plate glass proves nothing. Well, here's the thing. I've mentioned this before. I view this entire subject the same as I view an internal combustion engine. You have your ignition source, you have your fuel, which is the charcoal, and you have your air, which is the KNO3. This is an internal combustion engine. Okay? So to be dismissive on testing your gunpowder on plate glass, to me, is as dismissive as somebody looking at a spark plug that's all carburized and fouled out saying, this proves nothing. This fouled out spark plug proves nothing. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to burn 30 grams of Swiss on a plate glass, and we're going to look at it. Okay? And then I'm going to flip the glass over and do a second burn with my mesquite mullein, and we'll look at that and see if burning on a plate glass can really tell us something or not. Alright, let's get a close-up. Now I don't know how well the camera is going to be able to pick any of this up, but I'll try to give you different angles, and if you can look real close you can see that there's a lot of white fouling. Well, what I'll do, and hopefully you can see it, I'm pushing all that fouling into a pile. You see that pile? See the white stuff on my finger? That's what could be being left behind in your guns burning Swiss. Now personally, I do not believe that this is from the gunpowder itself. I believe it's the heavy graphite glazing. And like anything else that burns, there's always something, an ash, if you will, left behind. Okay, but I'm going to run my fingers through the smoke. Very gritty. I can feel all that grit coming off my finger, but it feels gritty. It doesn't feel smooth. Running it through the center of the burn, you can see what's being left behind. So, in one sense, what does this prove? Well, it proves Swiss is not the cleanest of the cleanest gunpowders. Okay? And in some worlds, and in some aspects, you could also say that this is just as dirty as GoX. Because black powder, by the very nature, is dirty. Now, I'm going to clean the glass, and I'm going to, well actually I'll turn the glass over and I'll do the burn with my mesquite mullein, and I want to turn it over because if you can see, probably not, but a lot of that white fouling has made its way to the very end of the glass, and if I do that burn on the same side, I'll have a cross contamination. So let me get reset up and we'll continue with this experiment. Okay, let's get a close-up. Alright, let's get that close-up. I'll do the same thing, put it on edge, and see if you can determine any little white specks. Okay, just not there. I'm going to run my finger through the smoke. Very soft, and I'm not feeling any grit like I did running my finger through that Swiss. And once again, the fouling. But I don't have that hard white grit going back down into my barrel when I'm loading up the next charge. Run my finger through the center of the burn. Again, you would expect it. Only 43% of what you want out of your black powder is being produced. The rest of it is fouling. But how soft is that fouling? Well, if you watch the video that I put up with Castle Plu 2026, you will see the result of soft fouling. Nothing that's gritty. Alright, let's go back into the shop and continue on. Let me wet my whistle. Reading further from Brett's book on page 58, speaking about Walther Abbey and the methods that they went through to make their black powder and testing their black powder. Page 58. Testing the mixture was done by igniting a very small quantity on a glass plate. All that should be left is a black sooty mark. Didn't I just show that with my homemade black powder? I did. Any presence of small white or yellow beads or specks indicates that it has not been fully incorporated. So burning your black powder on plate glass does prove something. It proves that your black powder is either going to perform properly, cleanly, or it's going to leave a lot of garbage behind. That's what it proves. But once again, what I hear is your fouled out spark plug proves nothing. Imagine that. Okay, I hope for this question your answer has been supplied. Did I word that right? I don't know. The answer been supplied. Oh well, I think you know what I meant. So I want to move on to a couple more comments here. And I understand that what I'm about to say is probably going to upset a few more people. But I've come to the point of my life with my experience with cap and ball revolvers. At this point, I just don't care no more. I just don't care. Because even when I built my first cap and ball revolver when I was 18 years old, I understood back then that there's this conflict between the Remington guys and the Colt guys. And quite honestly, I don't care. Because as far as I'm concerned, having all these years of experience with these cap and ball revolvers, they both have their issues. Some greater than the other. Some a little more easily resolved than others. Okay? But I recently did a video talking about the Remington and their design flaw and the pin. And somebody left a comment that basically said, apparently you don't understand, this is not about lubrication. It's about fouling management. Now I find the choice of words intriguing. Fouling management. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but doesn't a lubrication manage the fouling by keeping it soft? You see, when you challenge somebody in a comment section, then they come back with a different set of words thinking that they can confuse the issue, gaslight you by saying it and wording it a little bit differently. Okay? Fouling management has a lot to do with the lubrication you use. Otherwise, you wouldn't have every other YouTuber out there shooting black powder guns saying, oh, you want to use a lubricant to keep the fouling soft. That is fouling management. Okay? But apparently, this commenter, by the way, I blocked you from using my YouTube channel and leaving comments, because like I said, I'm done with this horse shit. Okay? I'm just done with it. Okay? So apparently this viewer never watched the video I did. Well, come November it'll be 4 years when I put up a video, and if I remember right, I think I entitled it Pieta 1858 NMA Tricks and Modifications. Okay? That was also one of the other videos that somebody left a comment a long time ago. Oh, you just ruined a perfectly good gun. No, I didn't. See, that's that little pissing contest, that little pissing war between the Remington guys and the Colt guys. That's all that is. And I've seen that since I was 18 years old. Okay? But if you go back and watch that video, you will see, and even at that time, I was already cutting grease grooves into my cylinder pins in the Remington. Okay? And I even mentioned in that video that Blackie Thomas even suggests doing it, but cutting them as deep as the thickness of your thumbnail. I mentioned in that video, I go a little bit deeper with it. Okay? So this concept of cutting grooves into the cylinder pin in a Remington, it's not new to me. It's not a game changer to me. It's nothing new. All this is some guy being converted from liking Colts to now liking Remingtons. I like them both just as equally. But as I mentioned, if I'm going to carry one, I'm going to carry the Remington because I can put more powder in it. The only reason, plus I can swap out a cylinder real quick. Those are the only reasons, okay? But if you go back and watch that video, you will also hear me say at that moment in time, I've cut those grooves in the previous 2 Remingtons that I've owned. Okay? Now what the year expanse between those 2 Remingtons, I don't remember, but this was something that I was doing way back then. So leaving comments like, well, clearly you don't understand, clearly you don't watch what's on this channel. Okay? Clearly you don't. So you're just coming over from someone else's channel and you're trying to strut like a peacock. And you just got taken down because you didn't watch what I've done. And again, there's so much stuff on the internet these days. You know, like I watched somebody's content years ago. This content creator says, well, I don't watch videos of people shooting paper targets. I like shooting at steel targets. That's why I come out and mockingly did, and you saw it on the video at Cache La Plu, 150 yards. I hit low off center. Yeah, I hit the target. But it wasn't a kill shot. That's not real life. That's recreating. That's not real life. Because in real life, if that was a deer, I'd have never taken that shot. But what you guys don't know, you see these little certificates right here from the New Mexico mountain men when I participated in their ham shoot. They had another target set out at 100 yards, okay? And you can look through the scope to see where the bullseye was. So I kind of knew, lining up my shot where it was, I missed the heart section about that much low. That was 100 yards, okay? If that had been a deer and I was aiming like up in the shoulder area, that bullet would have dropped right into the lungs. That's real life. Okay? Anything else, like I've said before, is just performing for the camera. But now, this same YouTuber years ago that said, I don't watch those videos of people shooting paper targets. Now this YouTuber expects you to watch him shooting paper targets. Go figure, right? You put a contest out in front of everybody, and then you're going to see who really does shoot at paper targets and who really don't. Because if you noticed, I didn't participate in that. I did not participate. But hey, to each his own. So any more negative comments, I'm not going to respond. I'm just going to prevent you from leaving any more comments. It's just that simple, because I've been involved with black powder guns since I was 18 years old, and I've heard all of the horse shit imaginable when it comes to cap and ball revolvers. I've heard it all, and I'm gotten to the point in my life that I'm not going to be part of this continued, horseshit conversation between Remington boys and the Colt boys, because like I just stated, as far as today is concerned, nobody's going to take one of these into a battle situation. Okay, you might carry one for self-defense, but if you do, just like any modern gun, it can stovepipe. You could have a dud, and you're facing a horrific situation. It's not hard, friends. It's really not. So, I forgot what the other comment was that I was going to discuss, but that's neither here nor there because I blocked that person also. So, anyhow, if you've gleaned something from this, I hope you give it a thumbs up, share it with your bestest of buds, and if you haven't subscribed by now, I wouldn't even bother myself. And if you're going to leave negative comments, you better make it a good one because that'll be the last one. Bye.